A guten Chodesh, and today's blot is Daf Kuf Chav Tes, Kum Lenen, a blot Gemara. Okay, we're continuing talking about Yerushas, and we spoke about the father's belief to say that this son is my B'choir, and so on and so forth. And if a father decides to distribute his money any way he wants, and he gives it as a matana, he can do whatever he wants. He can even give it to strangers. But if he says it Yerusha, then he has to follow the laws of the Torah. If he says in addition Yashin, then whatever the Torah says, you can't give one son more than another. Even though we'll see later, Becham Barak has his own opinion. Okay. Then the Mishnah concluded, if you use the word matana, I don't care in the beginning, the middle, or the end, even though you said Yiddish, it has it in a matana, then you can give one more than the other, because matana, you can do whatever you want. So now the Gemara will discuss that. Says the Gemara 5 lines on top of the page. If you decide to distribute a chasim, you give one more than another. It's not a problem if you give it in the manner of a matana. Says the Gemara, hey chidami. What exactly means the beginning, middle, and end? Matana b'chila. Let's focus on that. What do you mean? You said the word matana in the beginning. Hey chidami be'emtza. What do you mean? You said in the middle. And hey chidami b'seif. The Mishnah gives three possibilities. As long as you use the matana, beginning, middle, and end of your sentence, good enough. The Gemara says, "Ki asad Abdimi," but Abdimi came from Israel to bubble. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, "Name Rabbi Yochanan." This is what an example. Tinasan sada plainis leplaini. This particular field should be given. It's a lashon of matana. Use the word gift. The yisha, and he should inherit it. So even though he used the word Yerusha, but as long as in the beginning he used the word matana, it becomes like matana. Zuyi matana betchila. That's what the Mishnah means when it says a matana in the beginning. If you only use the word Yerusha, you cannot go against the Torah. I said, I want you to yashin more the Torah lots you on the cheshbon of your brothers. You can't do that. But because you use matana, you can, even though you use the word Yerush afterwards. What's the next case is Yersha. Like the next case example is you said the word Yerush first, but then you said b'tinasanloi. But he should be given to as a matana. That's an example of matana b'seif, and the Mishnah says that's good enough as well. It's considered matana. You're not going against the Torah. An example in the middle, Yersha you should yashin vetinosanloi. It should be given to him. The Yersha, so you used it in the beginning, you used the end of the word Yerusha, but in the middle you said the word matana. Zui matana b'emtza. Now we're going to have a number of opinions as to when we say that as long as you use the word matana somewhere in your sentence, it's good enough. Opinion number one, Rav Dimi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. We're going to have like four opinions. Opinion number one. Are you talking about this to the same person about the same field, and you use the word Yerusha and matana? So even though you use the word Yerusha, you also use the word matana, and that's good enough. If I'm dealing with one person but two different fields, and I use the word Yerusha and I use the word matana, we're going to say that whichever one, if each one is used for a different field. One of them is a matana, and one of them is a Yerusha, whichever word you use first. If matana is first, the first field is a matana. The word Yerusha was first, the first field is Yerusha. And therefore, the part of Yerusha, you cannot go against the Torah. The part of matana, you can do whatever you want. What about, or another case, Sadachas, you took one field, but you're dividing it in half, and you said, I want two people to own this field. One of them, you use the word Yerusha. You didn't use, you have one sentence. You said, I'm giving this one field, I'm dividing among two people. You should be Yiddish, it should be Nisan. Then we're going to say, if we're talking about two different people, then one of them, you probably meant Yerusha, and one of them is Matana. And whichever one you said first, whichever person you said first, that's how it works. So the Matana part is not a problem. The Yerusha part is a problem. Can't go into the Torah. Like, it doesn't work. That's opinion number one. So it only works beside achas and odem echad. Comes along Rabbi Lazar. Every time I see that, I'm always amazed because the Gemara Taina says Rabbi Yochanan, when Ishlokish passed away, Rabbi Yochanan was looking for chavrusa, and they gave him Rabbi Lazar. And every time Rabbi Yochanan said something, Rabbi Lazar brought the rayas that Rabbi Yochanan was right. Rabbi Yochanan said, "I need you to tell me I'm right." Ishlokish used to ask me questions, and you go through our Shas. Rabbi Lazar doesn't stop arguing with Rabbi Yochanan. So all they had to tell Rabbi Lazar was, instead of getting angry, Rabbi Yochanan said, continue behaving like Rabbi Lazar behaves. Argue with me. Because you see right here, we have it everywhere. He's arguing with Rabbi Yochanan. So what happened? What happened there? Something is missing in that story. Anyway, Rabbi Lazar disagrees with his Rebbe, and he says, Afilu Adam Echad, even one person in two fields. Or Sada Achas, and two people, Shnei Adam. If you use the word Yerusha Matana, it's all Matana. You know when I'll agree that if you that it's like two separate cases, a Shnei Sadas, a Shnei Adam. You're talking about two fields and two different people. It's really two separate, even though you put them all together in one sentence. It's two different what do you call it, the dealings that are happening, two different deals. Okay, one of them is a Yerusha and one is a Matana. So whichever one he said first is, but that's what it is. Therefore, the Matana part is effective and the Yerusha part is not effective. Comes along opinion number 3. Kiasa Ravin, when the Ravin came along, he came along and he said in the name of Rabbi Yechonah, but he wasn't making a comment on the Mishnah. He was saying a halacha, but the halacha relates back to our Mishnah. And he said exactly the opposite of what Rabbi Dimi said in the name of Rabbi Yechonah. When Ravin came along, he said the following case. The guy said to Nosan Sada Plainis Leplani. This field should be given to Reuven, let's say. The Yiddish Plainis, Sada Plainis, Sada Plainis, and Shimon should yashin the second field. So you're talking about two people here, two fields. So according to everybody, we had both opinions before. So in that case, there's nothing to talk about. Yerusha is Yerusha, Matana is Matana, talking about two different inyanim. And Rabbi Yechonah says Kana. In his version, in the Ravi's version, Rabbi Yechonah even Shnei Adam and two fields. Nevertheless, since in the same sentence he used Matana and Yerusha, Matana changes the whole dynamics of this dealings. It's all now a Matana, even though you use the word Yiddish. And Abelazar says like Kana. Abelazar says two people, two fields. You're not kind of, because it's obviously the word Yerusha and the word Matana are talking about two different people. This is one person, this is another person. One of them makes sense. Abelazar, as we'll see, makes sense. But one of them doesn't make sense, and I got a problem. Now, this is difficult to understand. Why is it a kasha? It's exactly what Abelazar said before. So the Rashbam and Rashbam learned, therefore, you must say that Abelazar never concluded before himself two people. And all Abelazar says, I argue that I hold that one person, two fields, or one field and two people is still, considered matana. We, the Gemara, concluded, but when would Rabbi Loza be made to Rav Dimi, two fields, two people? So now we're teasing it out. And how do we know that? We're teasing it out from this piece right here. So Rabbi Loza, kasha, when does Rabbi Loza say, when does Rabbi Loza say it's considered matana, one person, two fields? Or but in the case that the Ravin brought from Eretz Yisrael is Shnei Bnei Adam, the Shtei Sodas, Rabbi Loza would definitely agree that's considered two separate deals. One is a Yerusha, one is a Matana, and the Yerusha part is not going to work. Rabbi Yechonah doesn't make sense. You started off so strict of Dimi that even one person, if it's two fields, will say that one is Yerusha, one is Matana. And here Rabbi Yechonah says that even two people and two fields, if in the same sentence they use Matana, Yerusha, it's a Matana. A problem. Answer the Gemara, you have it so many times. So Ravin and Rav Dimi argue as to what Rabbi Yechonah said. Comes along now another opinion, but Reish Lakish says that Loi Kana Ad, you're not Koine, no, it's not considered Matana. Ad Shiyema, he had to say the following. Pliny Yisha Sada. We're talking about here two people and two fields. And we just made an open-ended statement. Two people and two fields. Except Rabbi Yechonah in Ravin's version. And Ravin's version of Rabbi Yechonah, since he used the word matana in the same sentence, the whole sentence becomes matana. And everybody now, is effective. It doesn't matter if two people, two fields. Everyone else argues with that. Everyone else says two people, two fields, are two separate deals. One is a Yerusha, one is a matana. We just look at the sequence of what came first, we'll get second. Comes on Lakish says, sometimes two people and two fields, sometimes two people and two fields is considered a matan, even though you use the word Yiddish as well. And this is what he says. The olam loikana, generally speaking, two people, two fields, if you use the word Yerusha and matana, the word Yerusha, the person that relates to that, is not kind of, we don't treat it as matana. But in the following exception, even two people and two fields, and you use the word matana, will say that it transforms the entire deal in a manner of matana. And what's that? If you said achiyema pliny, you use the word like this. These are these two people. Yirsu sada pliny. So you start off saying Yerusha, right? That these two people should inherit these two fields. So you start with Yerusha. Then you said shanasatim lehem, that I already gave them. You threw the matana, and then you said Yerusha again. If you said Yerusha in the beginning, and then he said matana, we'll say it's two. two deals. If you said matana first and then Yerusha, two deals. You start off with Yerusha and you start off with Yerusha and you end off Yerusha. If you would have said, and I'll give them as a matana, again, we'll say it's only to one of them. Which one? Probably the one that's written afterwards. But because you said in past tense that I gave them already, sounds like you're referring to both of them. This is the only exception that will say that even though you use the word Yeshu and you did front and end and you added Shirasat Lahem, okay, that's the word matana changes the dynamics of both deals and they both now consider matana and it's effective. Now the Gemara says that these opinions we just had here, Rav Dimi, we had Rabbi Lozer, we had a Rabbi named Rabbi Yechanan, and Rish Lakish is actually a machlekes of other Maraim argue the same thing. Beplukta, you know, other Maraim actually have the same argument. Omar Rav Hamnuna said, Lo yishanu el od mecha b'sadach. He holds exactly Rav Dimi. When do we say if you use the word Yerusha and Matana is considered a gift? Only if it's one person in one field. So obviously it's one deal. One person, two fields, even though it's the same person, it's like two different deals. Or Sadach is one field, but Adam, and you divide it in half. Two people, like two deals. One is Yerusha, one is Matana. Like that's exactly like Abdimi. Rab Nachman says, no, I hold like Rabbi Lazar that even if I feel Adam if you're dealing with one person and two fields, that's like one deal. And the bigger chid is Adam, one field and two people. Since it's one field, even though we're talking with two people, each one gets a part of it. It's like one deal. It's one deal that's divided by two people. So therefore, we'll say that matana changes the word Yerusha. I will stay sodas two fields, two people. That's mamish two deals. Like no. And Rab Sheisha says, "Afilu shtei sodas v'shnei be'adam." Rab Sheisha says, even two fields and two people, which is like Rabbi Yechanan. In Ravi's version, two people and two deals, the sentence, if you use in the same sentence, Matana Yerusha, it changes it all around, it makes it a Matana. How do I know that this is a big finish? You talk to two different people, two different fields, but because he put it all together in one sentence and you use the word Yerusha, Matana changes it around. It's a big finish. How do I know that? In Tanya we learned the guy was, let's say, going overseas or he's dying, and he said, "This is my estate. I want you to give my children. I want you to drip feed them. Because if I give them all the money one go, they'll spend it. They'll spend for it. They'll spend it, and we'll have nothing left. So I want to be frugal. I want to be careful. Give them 1 shekel a week to sustain themselves until you run out of money. The ruin lead to sell it, but the fact is, you can't survive on a shekel. You need more than 1 shekel. You need a seller." He's nice one seller, even though the father said give them a shekel. He only said that because he thought that was enough. If they need a seller, give them a seller. And he wanted just that they should learn to be, a bit more careful with their money, the budget. But if he clearly said al titnu lehen el shekel, he clearly spelled out, I don't want you to give them any more than a shekel. So that's mamish is makbid. I'm telling you not to. In that case, ain't nice el shekel. You only give them a shekel. You only give them a shekel. The imam, but if he said, imesu, if he said, imesu, if my children die and there's still money left, because we had a big estate, and this person's dying, so he's leaving money for his children, and he said, I want you to drip feed them. And if my children die, I want that money, whatever's left over, to be passed on to someone else, not to their children. Not to, I don't want the money in the bank account to become theirs. The trust is not in their name, and therefore, if they die, it moves on to a friend of mine. I want someone else to have it. So now you can see my cheshbon was not just to teach my children how to be frugal. It's more because I want to have some money left over to be able to give to a friend of mine. That's why I'm telling you, give them only a shekel a week, because I want to have some money left over, so that when they pass away, it should go on to my friend. Is then in that case, bein shamatru, bein shamal titnu, ain't nice another shekel. In this case, it's obvious he's not doing it to be frugal. He's doing it because he wants money left over for someone else. So I don't care what lashon he uses. He said a shekel. You only give a shekel. You only give a shekel. Now. Over here, here it's like two fields. What do you mean two fields? We're talking about the same money in the bank account. But because the second person cannot the fremde, the stranger, cannot have access to this money while his children are alive, because he said, while my children are alive, every week give them the money. So therefore, it's considered like two separate fields or two separate bank accounts. It's not like one. It's like two separate deals. And we're talking about two groups of people. One is his family and one is a stranger. And yet it says, it says clearly that they're kind of, he said over here to a matana, and he said Yoshu, he's giving it to his children, like he said Yoshu, and yet this is clearly that it's effective. So we see that even two people and two fields, and even though he uses the word, even though he's talking about a Yerusha and a matana, we say the whole thing is a matana. And therefore, even though he's giving it to a fremde guy, and he's going against a Torah, it's treated like a matana. Two people, it's treated like a matana. In that raya to Rabbi Yochanan and to us, Rav Shesha says that two people, two different others, if you're in the same sentence, you use both, it's considered. And here the thing like this: what did he say? He said, "Tnu lebani, give it to my children," and then he said, "The yirshu acher." Clearly, he said the others should be yashin, and that's mamish against the Torah. It belongs to the children should have it, and they should go downwards. And he's going against. He's taking his assets away from his children to a friend, and he used the word Yerusha, and yet it's effective. So definitely we see from here that because he put it all together in one sentence, the word matana transforms everything. That's Rav Shesha's raya. Says the Gemara, you understood achedim as strangers who have no rights to this field. But remember, we constantly bring up Rabbi Yochanan Mebroika. Rabbi Yochanan Mebroika says that you have a right, as long as this person has a connection to the Yerusha, you have a right to change the rules. You can give it to one son and nobody else, exclusion of everybody else, because this son is entitled to something, ma Torah. So who said achedim means you're going against the Torah? Maybe achedim means to, instead of all 5 sons getting a shekel a week, I wanted that when they die, he should go to only one of the sons. And he's called achedim because he's only one out of the 5. So therefore, we're not, and really, if you have two people in two fields and you use the word Yerusha and Matana, the Yerusha part is not effective. But over here it is because the tax entitled to Yerusha. So he asked the question, he actually answered it. But we're talking about Nachedim is not a stranger, you're giving it to somebody who is entitled to inherit. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Broiki, and this follows the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broiki, which we're going to learn about. We heard so much about him. Eventually, we learn about him tomorrow in tomorrow's Mishnah. And there are two opinions how far we take Rabbi Yochanan ben Broiki, because one opinion goes even further. That Rabbi Yochanan ben Broiki holds not only you have 5 sons and have a daughter. So the way we normally learn is instead of giving to all 5 sons, he chose one son, the youngest. Or you had before Tinuk ben Abanim. He chose one son, I want to give it to this son. Give it to the daughter, not to the sons at all. But because the daughter also has a connection to Yerusha, if there are no sons at all, or if all sons pass away and they have no children, it goes to the daughter. So that even though her connection is much further away and much more tenuous, it's enough that you can choose her to give it to her over everybody else. But regardless, so no ra'if one way or another. Omer Rashi, bring another ayah. Tashma coming here, he says, Nechasai lo, he said, I'm going to give you my nechasim. He says to one person, I'm giving you my nechasim. This is a matana. And then he says, V'acharecha yirish pleni. And afterwards, after you die, I want this other person to yashin. So here you start off with matana, and then you say Yerusha, and this Yerusha is l'chayda against the Torah. You're giving the son a fremda. We'll come back later, maybe it's a Rabbi Yochanan again. We'll see. But in this case, the Gemara conclude it can't be. So this is like two people in two fields again, because the second, even though we're talking about the same asset, that other person cannot use it until this first person dies. So it's like two different assets and two different people. Then he said, "Does Reuben Shimon Levi? I want Reuben to have it, but Reuben, I'm giving Matana. And then when Reuben dies, she goes Yerusha to Levi. And Shimon dies, goes Yerusha to Levi. May Sidishin, if the first person dies, is what happens Kana Sheni. The second person Kana. How can the second person Kana use the word Yerusha? You're going against the Torah, you're taking away from the children. is clear proof to us what we said before, that as long as in the same sentence you use the word matana, and even though you use the word Yerusha, the matana changes, and it reflects the word Yerusha. It didn't mean literally, it's a matana. Okay, but the Brisa continues. What about Mesheni? If Shimon died, if Shimon died while Reuben still held on to the land, so Reuben had the land first, and the plan was Reuben, then Shimon, then Levi. But Shimon predeceased Reuben. In that case, Levi doesn't get anything. Levi's whole connection to the field is through Shimon. But there is no Shimon here, because Shimon died before Reuben. So Reuben cannot pass it on to Shimon. And in that case over there, it stays with Reuben's family. It doesn't move on. Says the Gemara, over here, the it's like two fields and two people. It's clearly here that you are kind of. What's the problem? Say the same we said before. That achad doesn't mean a stranger; it means another children. If you tell me that what, that it's another son, I want one son to Yasher, then we got a problem. Then even if Shimon died before Reuben, he's still Yasher because we were before. If you die, if somebody dies, his children Yasher. Ein loy, ayin olo. So the Chayda should have gone, to Shimon's children. And Nachman. If let's forget about the predeceased line. If Reuben passes it on to Shimon as a Yerusha, right? That's what we're learning. It's a Yerusha because if you have the right to say, I want to choose this son to be Yashin. So this is full din of Yerusha. So why, if Shimon dies, does it go sideways to Levi? It should go to Shimon's children. Because you can't take away against the Torah. Even if you can't go against the Torah. And once you decided that I want to give to this particular son the Yerusha after Reuben had it, I give it to Reuben and then Shimon, I give it as a Yerusha, then it has to go down. It can't go sideways. So why Kol Shlishi? So it can't be talking about Yerusha here. It can't be talking about Yerusha to one of his children. It must be talking about to a stranger that he said, I want, if Reuben works, Shimon, who's a friend of mine, and if Shimon doesn't die, just go to Levi. And yet it says, Mamish two fields there, two people, and yet it says here that Kana, even though it's against the Torah, I should give to my children. Sheni Kana Shlishi Hashal Rabach Rabbi said even Nechasai Loch if a guy says Nechas with you, and then afterwards to that person, the Rishon Ro Liyosh, if the first person is Ro to Yashin, Ein L'Sheni B'Makam Rishon Klum. The second person does not get the matana because once the chalais of Yerusha, if the first person that you want to give, even a kabbalah and you can choose one or the other, if you gave it to the first person, even if you gave it in a form of matana, if that person you gave it to your son as a matana, and then you say when this son passes away, I want to go down to someone else. Since this son is Rol Yoshai, then he becomes a Yiddish, and then you have no right to go against the Torah. Even though you use the word nechasai lach, in this case over here, it becomes like Yerusha. The Yerusha ain't lahefsik. In fact, based on this, the Rishonim have a big problem, and most of the men with Tzorachin. It's the whole idea of a shchiv mara. The shchiv mara says that after I pass away, it's Yerusha, but he also says, I want you to give this person $100. We have this all over Shas. Give this person, or give this person money. How does that happen? The moment he dies, the Torah says, the Yiddish. When does the Shchiv Mara become effective? It doesn't happen now. It happens after he passes away. That's why Shchiv Mara, if he recovers, then everything falls apart because it never left his Rishus. So the Shchiv Mara, it only takes effect after he died. The moment he died, the Yiddish. And Yiddish ain't lahefsik. Mitzvah kind of mace and all that. Yep, but he can't go against the Torah. We help him out, but you don't have to. He doesn't have to say, Kisvu, right the Biknu. If he just says it, you have to write it on the star, but not against the Torah. So how does it work? The Ramban remains the Tzorachin. But the general gist, what they're trying to say is that even though it's not chal till after he dies, really it's chal straight away, or in a way like retrospective. They don't spell out. They don't say the word retrospective, but it's like it's chal straight away while he's still alive, before the Yerusha kicks in. So therefore, it's able to happen, even though it doesn't really happen till after he dies. And they conclude like Tzorachin, we still need to understand how it works. Anyway, bottom line is, we see clearly from here that two people, two fields, you use the word matana, the whole thing becomes matana, and it's effective. Tiyufta de kula tiyufta. It repudiates all the different opinions. However, what about Ish Lakish? Reish Lakish says that sometimes two people in two fields will work if you use the word Yerusha. Then Matana Shenasati that I gave you in the past tense, then Yerusha again. So then we say that the Matana goes to both Yerushas and it changes. It's not Stam, in the same sentence. Stam in the same sentence, two people in two fields, it's two deals. One is Yerusha and Matana. But if you put the word Matana in between and you said that I already gave you, then it works on both words Yerusha that you said in the beginning and the end, and therefore it applies to both. Now, layman nami to have it use the Lakish. Let the chayda this be a problem with the Lakish as well, because over here, he used the word matan and everything else, and we're still saying here that it's what do we see in this case here? We see here two fields and two people. You said you didn't say Yerusha matana Yerusha. You said b'chosalach matana, and this guy should yashin. And says clearly here that it's effective. It's effective. That the word matana applies to both cases, both people in both fields. Akasha Lakish, you limited it only to a case where you said Yirshu and Nasati and Yirshu, and here we're seeing open-ended. I didn't say those. I didn't say lashon at all. I said nechasalach, which is pure matana. Then I said acharecha they should yashin. That's all I said. And yet, two people, two fields in the mission, and the B'nai says it's good. But the second person is sheni kana. How can that be? And what's the problem with that? So big deal. So the Shlach is also repudiated. The problem is Vama Rava said Yavama is Hilchus Kavasi the Shlakish Bali class that there's only three cases that we pass like the Shlakish. But can you pay this? Remember, three cases, and this is one of them. And you just slugged it up from a brisa. So Malay Kasha. This is what I mentioned a few days ago. Kan betoich kan that that the Shlakish is saying there's a difference in the toich achidibur. That dibur, you can change your mind. So dibur, you can say if you said matana, and then said Yerusha will say becomes matana. When we said that two people in two fields, it doesn't work. Is if it's not dibur, not dibur, it's mamash two inyanim, two separate transactions. So one person is matana, one person is Yerusha, doesn't work unless you said in the format that Ishlak you said Yishu, Nasati, Yershu, or whatever. So then we say okay, they're clear that he's saying on both of them. But the Bryce is talking about where you said Teich Dibur. And therefore, because Teich Dibur is like one, then it becomes like one, and therefore becomes like Matana, even two people in two fields. So now that the Gemara brought up this in of Teich Dibur, the Hilchasas, the Gemara concludes, Kol Teich Dibur Kedibur Dami. Whenever we say Teich Dibur is like a Dibur Dami. Why Taka Teich Dibur Dami? It's big machlekes. Meaning the Durham, but the big machlekes are shining. It brings a little bit of here as well. Rabbeinu Tam holds that Mahat Torah, there's no such thing as Torah Dibur Dibur. You did it. It's a special Takanos Chachamim. The Chachamim said, and it's amazing, it's not fair. This guy is doing a business deal, or this guy is doing whatever he's doing, and his Rebbe walks by, and you have to say Shalom Aleichem to your Rebbe. And because he said Shalom Aleichem to the Rebbe, which is the right thing, he's not going to lose because he can no longer change his mind about whatever it is that he did. It's not fair. So it's Mechameh, a special Takana. So the given is the guy will definitely say Shalom Aleichem to his Rebbe. And we want to make sure that that shouldn't cause this person a hefsid. So therefore we made a takana Torah Dibur Kedibur. That's the main time limit. Which means that in those cases where we say that Torah Dibur doesn't work, which we'll see in a minute, there are two exceptions, or four exceptions, or five exceptions. We'll see in the So where we say Torah Dibur doesn't work is not it's not a chiddush. There we go back to what the Torah says. The Torah says Torah Dibur never works. In those cases, we're not going to make that takana because those are too important that we're not going to say because Shalom Aleichem Rebbe or Shalom Aleichem Rebbe Moedi, the two opinions, that we're going to change the rules around. That's the main time. Other Rishonim learn it's Mahat Torah. That Torah Kedibur Dam is Mahat Torah. And the Ran gives a beautiful svara. The Ran says the svara is, and other Rishonim as well, that you were not Soymech Das yet. You didn't, in your own mind, you didn't really yet finish the deal. You did not finish, even though you said he did everything else. Even by Maisa, it's everything he did, because the Torah brings here the case of Kriya. If a person thought that his mother passed away, and he did Kriya, they didn't, but within Torah Dibur afterwards, they passed away. So we say Torah Dibur Kedibur, you have to write Kriya again. Here's a Maisa of tearing Kriya, but because Torah Dibur, it helps. So to that extent. In fact, that's the raya that they want to bring. Torah Dibur is Mahat Torah. Nothing to do with what does that have to do with Shalom Aleichem Rebbe Moedi? What, you can change your mind? What is that all about? So therefore they bring a knife from there. That's only is mahatayda. But so these others I want to learn that the idea is that you're having it's still part of the ma'isa. In other words, whatever you said, whatever you did, continues on for another few seconds. It lingers on, and therefore now there are four exceptions. The Algemar says there are two exceptions. Levad ma'avad gechavim, puts avodah zara, which according to Tam, there we said it's such a strict thing. We're not going to take or change it. The Torah says that is not saying kedibur. It's only a special cause of chamim to encourage you to say Shalom Aleichem, but we're going to leave the Torah's din when it comes to avodah zara. What exactly do you do by avodah zara? Machlek Yerushalayim. According to Taisus, you go to a person, you say, "Well, Shalom Yomar Sanhedrin." You say, "Person, Eliata, you're my God." That's avodah zara. And then after you say, "Oh, I was joking," too late. Once you said that, it's avodah zara. Rashbam says you took something. You said, "I want this to become like this house should be avodah zara." You're tough for something, and you say, "I want this to be avodah zara," and then right away you change your mind. And Taisus and others argue that you can't do that, and this will become avodah zara and so on. So that's one avodah zara. The next one is kiddushin. Now the Gemara in the Dorim says megadif, but megadif really falls in the if you say something sacrilegious against the Eibishter, and then which will learn Sanhedrin as well, and then you say, I take it back. But Megadif really falls under Avodah Zarah, so in our Gemara we shorten it. It's not the sugi here. And the next thing is Kiddushin. When a person is Mekadosh, a woman, again, it's a serious thing. So according to Tam, according to Teda, Yemamash Mekudish, and so on and so forth, the Chum decided not to be Mekel. In this case, and say, "Oh, you're not really married because you changed your mind." Once he gave it to her and she accepted, then she changes her mind, or he changes her mind. Fafal, we're not going to be Mekel. And according to the Ran, Kedushin, things which are so strict, Kedushin, if she accepted it, or if you gave it, you knew what you're doing beforehand. It's not like a business deal that you're not 100% sure, I'll take a little bit of a risk. Here, if you decide to do Abchas Shalom Avodah Zarah, or Megadif, or Kedushin, these are such serious things that the Ran says that you meant it. We don't need any more time afterwards. You already thought about it before, and you considered it. You're not going to change your mind. And the Gemara in the Dorim adds Gittin. But Gittin again, the same thing. Once you give a get, you can't change your mind. And again, it falls under Kedushin, right? Yotzav Ha'isa, so our Gemara doesn't spell it out. And some say by Hegdish as well. If you match or something, you cannot pull it back. Anyway, that ends the sugi here.